I would say there is a crisis.
This would be the most significant issue facing policing today.
Well, failing to act is going to put us in a position where we're unable to deliver to the public.
If we don't deal with it now, we will have some serious ramifications for protecting the citizens of Canada.
Police in Canada have never shied away from a struggle, and it's a good thing, too. They're going to need every bit of their collective will, knowledge, and experience to manage an enormous challenge now staring them down. I'm Ian Parker. This unprecedented issue does not come in the form of organized crime, street gangs, or some other criminal threat. The problem is the prevailing belief that somehow there will always be enough police, enough recruits, the right recruits. As we place the facts into evidence, you will see that reality says otherwise. Many police chiefs say otherwise. Human resources experts, pollsters, policing veterans, they will all tell us that one way or another, change is coming, and that now's the time to make sure that it's a change for the better. What you're about to see is the case for change, the evidence, expert testimony, and ultimately, the verdict. In Canada's 222 police services, 61,050 officers serve some 32 million Canadians. That's a ratio of 1 officer for every 528 people. That ratio ranks dead last, 25th out of 25 leading Western democratic countries. Chief of Police Terry Coleman of Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, is a member of the Board of Directors of the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police and a policing veteran.
Human resources requires a lot of expertise. 85 to 90% of operating budgets of police organizations across Canada are for personnel costs. They're for staff costs and related costs. Huge expense, yet we don't apply the appropriate level of expertise to manage it, including proper way and the best way anyway, to recruit, select, hire, provide a motivational environment, retain, the whole works. I think that's a huge void in Canadian policing even to this day.
He points out that 40 to 50% of senior officers will retire in the next 5 years, depleting the number of police, but also depriving it of a wealth of knowledge and experience. The current rate of recruitment is simply too low to replenish those retiring. It's an expanding net loss.
I liken this to a basketball working its way through a garden hose. And we're nearing the point where that very large group of individuals are going to leave our organization, and we're just facing that now.
Maybe we need a change at the national level. I think we need to talk. I also feel that police services need to advertise ahead of time their job requirements for the years to come, and to review these if required. They must take into account those who are retiring and those leaving for another career.
Demographics don't lie.
Trevor Wilson is an organizational change strategist. He's done extensive research on recruiting trends.
Birth rate is down, which means our natural labor supply will also be down. Immigration, while immigration is not necessarily up, but the composition of our immigration has changed, where the immigrants are coming from. But immigration is going to be far more important for our labor supply. And the war for talent is increasing because we've got an increased demand for management level, senior management level in all industries, and that's just going to continue over the next few years. You can't wait, because the truth of the matter is that Other industries have already woken up to this. If you don't wake up to this relatively soon and start repositioning yourself as employer of choice, you're going to lose the war.
Consider the cold reality of demographics, a complex new workplace, and a demanding new workforce. The dwindling pool of talent targeted by every profession. A problem compounded by young people looking for short-term challenges, mobility, advancement, not the stability and security sought by their parents or grandparents. As president of the Canadian Association of Police Boards, Ian Wilms has a national perspective. His understanding of the issues is big picture.
The model has to change, or else we're in some serious trouble. I think if we don't act now, it will become a crisis very soon. We're managing, we're kind of putting our fingers in the dike, so to say, using that analogy. But if we don't deal with it now, we will have some serious ramifications for protecting the citizens of Canada.
Based on this report by Ipsos Reid, a critical piece of evidence in the case for change, fewer young Canadians are even considering a career in policing. Only 3% of young people see policing as an interesting, multifaceted, thoroughly modern career opportunity. 3%. Almost two-thirds of respondents, 63%, said they would never even consider a career as a police officer. The report's conclusion is clear and a cause for concern. If Canada's youth are disinterested in a policing career, then the future of the profession could be in jeopardy.
Well, I think it's been a serious situation for a while. I think police organizations and the police boards that manage many of the police organizations either didn't believe the message that was being delivered over the last 7, 8, 10 years, or chose to ignore it, in denial perhaps. There certainly wasn't a lot of preparation for what we're seeing now.
You have to adapt. Is it a shift? I think it's the way of thinking where you have to adapt. We're in 2007 now, so the recruiting process in the 50s or 60s and 70s, it's very different. If nothing's done, of course, it's going to become a crisis.
I would say there is a crisis looming, and it's time that we took action and got mobilized, and this is part of this change process. But we got to go well beyond where we're at right now. We've reached a point where we're into transformational change, and either we're going to get ahead of the change and be strategic about it, or we will suffer the consequences.
Under the current model, we're seeing that we're becoming increasingly challenged to ensure that we've got enough police capability in our communities to continue to meet the increasing demands for safety and security in the communities. So if we don't change, we're going to continue to run a deficit in that area, and in fact, it's our citizens who will eventually call us to account.
Bleak as that reality may be, the actual numbers are not the only critical problem. Canadians, new and well-established, expect to see themselves represented in their police force, and right now, they don't. A veteran of some 25 years in policing, Ottawa's new police chief, Vern White, spent a lot of time with the RCMP in Canada's north and knows firsthand recruiting means reaching out to people in a way that's right for them.
At the end of the day, no matter what I did in those communities, young Inuit kids would tell you that I'm a real nice guy from the south and a white guy, or haluna. They didn't see themselves in me or in my uniform. Not one day did they see themselves. And that was our recruiting challenge.
That same logic applies to the needs of new Canadians.
If you take a look at where most of the immigrants are coming from today, over 60% coming from Asia alone, then coming from other parts of Africa. It's the so-called third world. And the mindset that we have to recognize is that policing may not be perceived in the same way from those countries.
Turn! 1, 2, 3, 1! The interesting fact is that recruitment has only been identified by 63% of chiefs of police in Canada as the #1 risk to the future of policing.
I think several years ago, the environmental scanning was telling us that due to Canada's demographics, we're going to see huge challenges in recruiting and retention. We see that now. That issue is here now. And it's up to us as police leaders, HR managers, police boards, police chiefs, the police executive in the country to deal with the issue now.
If changes aren't made, the challenges are we won't have the top candidates coming into policing as a career. And we won't have the numbers. I would hate to see that some places we know historically have then dropped their standards. And that is one thing we never want to face, is to drop our standards. They have to remain high. We have to have the best candidates coming through. So we need to find and address the situation. We need to find a way of continuing to attract the best candidate.
There's going to need to be some dramatic steps here. We're at a point now where we might need to take some fairly drastic steps.
You've got to look at the senior leaders of policing to get past their little, my kingdom is my domain and no one else get into it. We have to get past that. They have to see that integrated policing is the future.
The War for Talent report, which is a report that came out in 1998, again, predicted that this thing was going to happen. But we really do have to pay attention to the fact that what they were predicting is what it is that we're living now. So wake up and smell the Maxwell House. Recognize also that your war for talent is not just a war for talent within the policing industry. You're in a war for talent globally.
Change doesn't necessarily mean failure, and I think a lot of our chiefs and senior managers are looking at this and saying, well, what have we done wrong? I think we just have to have the discussion about, because we're failing in recruiting numbers now, and we're all failing in filling our classes, it doesn't mean we were wrong then. It just means we need to change some things. More than enough applicants were showing up at the door 10 and 12 years ago. They're not showing up anymore.
This is not about changing something because something was broken. What was right for the times. What was done in the 60s, what was done in the 70s, what was done was right for the times. It's just that we're in this new millennium, we have changed, things have changed, and we need to change.
The Police Sector Council is a national organization committed to the sustainability of the policing community across Canada and to securing the future for all Canadians. The goal is to attract and retain more recruits, more new Canadians, more women, more people in remote and Aboriginal communities, more of everybody. Raising these issues and building consensus on the urgent need for action is the first step in this process. But it's only the first step. Next comes a national strategy. The Police Sector Council's Board of Directors, and that means every stakeholder in policing, is developing that strategy. Whatever the plan, one thing is certain: recruiting is now and must remain a priority for everyone.
If you don't pay attention to it now, you pay for it later.
But if you don't have the adequate pool of people interested in the profession generally, then you're going to struggle.
The stakes are very, very high here in terms of the police human resource problem.
In Canada, really everybody has to be a recruiter. That goes from police boards to police executive down to HR managers and individual officers.
Every officer out there every day is an opportunity for them to recruit, for them to identify potential, for them to identify candidates.
Police are not prone to panic. Present the facts and an officer will take the proper course of action. Hysteria never helped anyone in uniform, and it won't help now. But make no mistake, the experts, chiefs of police, they've made the case for change. The facts are not in dispute. The verdict is in, and the time to act is now. Change is not a sign of failure, but the failure to change, well, that's just not an option.